All right. I want to welcome everyone to the webinar for the 506C investment opportunity for KO self-storage in Cleburne, Texas. My name is Shane Boring, part of the Boring & Co. group. I'm also joined by Bryce Boring, who's going to be taking us through some of the underwriting today. And we've got Dee Dee monitoring the questions if needed. Little housekeeping before we kick things off. This is an SEC compliant 506C investment opportunity. We're going to put a link in the chat for the deal portal, all of the documents, disclaimers, all that great fun stuff to read is in the portal for you. I'm not going to read this full disclaimer, but we do play by the rules and it's all there. If you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer them. And if you do have questions, also want to remind you to just pop those in the chat and we'll try and answer them right away if you have any. What we're going to look at tonight is an overview of the property, the financial analysis, and then the market analysis. And what we're going to challenge you to do is to find a better opportunity than KO right now. We see hundreds a year. We've got some great properties in this area, and we see other things that are happening in the state. And we're very confident that KO outperforms them all and is also resistant to tariffs. So we'll be talking about that here in just a second. KO is in Cleburne. If you're familiar with Dallas-Fort Worth, what that means is it's a straight 30-mile drop from Fort Worth. It's an hour away from Dallas, so it is technically, it's part of the DFW Metroplex now, which if you followed over the last couple of years, it's really kind of spreading out in all directions. We look at properties all around, and we have one just to the east, about 30 minutes away in Midlothian. The south part of DFW we really like because typically, at least for right now, it's not as competitive, and so the pricing is better for investment properties, but the growth is just as strong as north, south, east, west. I mean, it's all over the place. This property is a Class A facility. It's just over 91,000 square feet. I think it's 91,500 square feet. It's a beautiful facility. When we look at the unit mixes here in just a minute, you're going to see that the inventory available for unit types, the majority of it is the most high demand unit mix there is. Your 10 by 10s, 10 by 20s, 10 by 30s. And so it's just set up very nicely for anybody who needs storage. It's all drive up, so it's very convenient for renters. It's all non-climate, so it's very convenient for us. It's very low maintenance. And what we know about this area is demand for non-climate is really the highest there is. There's not much demand for climate control, which is why it just doesn't exist here. Looking at the financials, some of our pro forma assumptions here. Currently, the occupancy is at 76%. Bryce is going to go into some detail on why it's at 76, but also why it's making more money at 76% than it did at, I think 80, was it 82 or 89% last year?
89% this.
89, yeah, that's what I thought. He's going to tell you that story, but what I want to call your attention to here is year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our business plan is to take this thing to 84% occupancy. And that's really what all the banks will allow us to go to, because 84%, that's the national average for self-storage. However, the Texas average is 86%. The Dallas-Fort Worth average is 88%. And South DFW, where we have our current properties, we got, if you're on this call and you're in that Midlothian deal as well, you know how good it is. It's right under 92%. So storage is in very high demand. We feel very good about exceeding this 84% number. Bryce, I've done a lot of talking, and I kind of teased a little bit about the unit mix. Will you take us through this and kind of go into detail on financially why this is set up so well for a really good run?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that helps out this property in being able to achieve a high level of occupancy is that around 80% of the units are the most desired unit types that self storage has to offer. You think your 5x10s, 10x10s, 10x20s, stuff like that, that are very standard. There's not going to be any 8.5x16 here like you see on some more mom and pop shops. And what that helps us out with is that we don't have a lot of units that are unrentable or very hard to rent because they require someone that just kind of needs that very specific amount of space. Now, going further, we have talked about how we're only shooting for 84%. Well, this right here helps us to get there. And looking historically at the property and the properties around it, 84% is actually quite a really just shooting for much lower than what the area around it's doing and has been able to do.
Yep. Let's dig into the investor economics. We're purchasing this property. We started at a different number. We've worked our way down, but we're getting it just under 6.5 million. What should we be paying attention to here, Bryce?
Well, I think the purchase price is one of the big ones. We acquired this off market, and because of that, we've actually been able to see a 12% discount on the price from whenever it was originally marketed last summer. And a lot of our numbers are kind of reflected off of that. So, looking at last summer as kind of a benchmark of what we can achieve, we are now looking at what the current sellers are doing already. And what they're doing is, even though they are at a lower physical occupancy, they're actually making about 4 to 5% more in income month to month because they have been able to replace the bottom rung of their customers with much higher paying customers across the board, pretty much. It's kind of like the old, I believe, was it HP or forget what company it was exactly, but they would go and
GE.
fire GE.
Yep.
Yeah, they would go and fire the bottom 10% every single year. And that's kind of the way KO has been operating.
Yep. Let's look at what an investor would expect to have. We've got the full amount here, but as far as $100,000 investment, what would they be looking to do cash flow wise?
So the great thing about $100,000 investment example is that it makes the math here pretty easy. So that first year they could look toward about 2,700 bucks, going up to about 6,500, then 8,500, and so on until we're at about $13,000 by the end of the hold in cash flow alone in a yearly sample. Now, this also doesn't take into effect that there is going to be, the return of capital, and there is going to be the proceeds that go to the investors with the sale. And once that's all, added up together, we're looking at a 2.2 to 2.3 equity multiple, which is really cool. But the coolest part about this is that so much of it comes from the cash flow. So we're not expecting to sell this at a really high mark. And by I say expecting, we're not relying on it because we do see South DFW becoming more valuable. We are actually seeing a lot of the properties around there have already been selling for 110, $120 a foot, whereas we're buying ours for 72. So if we can sell for that number, which I believe we were projecting to sell for around 105 or six, right? Then we've already outdone our projections. So, like I said, we are just by and large really aiming low here, but we think that we can achieve so much more.
Yeah, and we've owned businesses for over 20 years in the Boring family. And there's one critical factor that you can tell if a business is succeeding or failing, and that's if they're cash flowing. If you're not cash flowing, you can promise a preferred return, you can promise all this stuff, but what you have is a business that's not succeeding. And that's what's great about self-storage is really the value of the business is based on the cash flow. And so we're really excited about this being a quality vehicle. We're going to go into the market now because not only do we have quality numbers, but when you look at Cleburne, it's a really quality market for investors. It's been kind of quiet for a while, but doesn't have a chance to anymore. Right now, there's 2,500 homes that are under construction. Is that number correct, Bryce?
I believe it's around that number.
Yeah, so I mean that's happening. More people are coming, tariffs or not. Okay. As far as construction goes for self-storage, when we ran our research, there was no new self-storage construction plan for 3 years. Add in the tariff situation now, it's going to be extended a little bit. So it's a good solid market for us to be competitive in. And then when you look at the demographics, what's really unique about Cleburne is their average household income, they earn $10,000 more than the US national average. They're also 4 years younger than the US national average. So that really sets up well for self-storage because self-storage is not just your, college student doing a transition or military, or maybe someone's, got some living arrangements and it's real temporary. It's more permanent now. You have a lot of people that have a side hustle today, right? Especially your younger group. I went within a 2 mile radius this past weekend, two different side hustle like farmers market type things, right? 150 vendors each. You've got people that don't have to work from an office. My wife's brother, he's taken off a couple of months. He lives here in Austin, but he's going to go live with some friends in Seattle for a few months and still work there. I guarantee you, since he's not paying rent, all of his stuff is in storage before he does that. So storage has become more of a long-term income generator, even though you only have to lease month to month. It's really set up well. And then when you look at Cleburne, all right, and I want you to kind of dig into these competitors, Bryce. When you look at Cleburne, one of the things that we really, really, really like is you don't see Extra Space, you don't see CubeSmart, you don't see Public Storage. There's no REIT presence in this market. The closest thing to one was KO, right?
Mhm.
Talk
That's
about
right.
these comps and kind of what I've talked about with the market and how that impacts your numbers and while we're excited.
Yeah, I would say really it's just the result of Cleburne not being historically a sexy town, that there's no REIT presence, right? This is not Frisco, it's not uh, Melissa or Anna or Sherman, right? All these are getting just a lot of buzz right now. And because of that, the REITs in the world have just dove on in, and you might see two or three of each in each of those towns. Whereas here, they're just not there yet. And frankly, that's also potentially, a reason is a lot of these mom and pops just won't sell. I've reached out to Pedigo. I've reached out to Yellow Jacket. Neither one of those wanted to sell to me. So and they're nice people. I've met them in person. They are mom and pop shops that want to do their thing and then retire eventually. So maybe we'll buy them then. But really, what's happened here is we have this strange little microcosm where everyone's playing by their own rule book, and we don't have a large REIT that is just able to go and boat race everyone. And that's what we're hoping to do here is just through better management, better design, better user experience, we can make a much better product and just dominate this market. And really, the best part about this all is that our underwriting, again, doesn't actually have us doing that. So where all of these are in the mid to high 90s as far as occupancy, we're shooting for 84. Where all of these are about 15 to 20% higher as far as rents go, we're going to be getting to that point in about 3 to 4 years, according to our projections. All of these things we can potentially do faster and better, and we can start hitting our numbers faster and better. So it's just a real great opportunity to take advantage of a market that by and large is not getting the same amount of attention that it should be.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Self-storage is not sexy. It's not complicated. There's no one who lives there. There's no toilets, so you don't have to worry about plumbing. There's no termites, so you don't have to worry about the place falling in, which typically no trouble at all. And the value of them is based on the performance of the business. So we're really excited about adding this to the Boring Co. portfolio. That it will not be named KO Storage. It'll be called Next Gen Storage. And with that, we'll be adding some special amenities as well that kind of move toward the next generation of smart storage. So if anyone has any questions at this point, we'll definitely take any. We'll wait just a couple moments to see if there are any. And if not, we certainly hope we can visit with you more about KO because it's a great opportunity.